There is a moment, a very specific, almost invisible moment in a person's life right before everything shifts, before the crowd notices, before the world turns its head, before the whispers become roars. You have been standing in that moment for longer than you know. Maybe you felt it this morning, when you woke up and couldn't explain the strange electricity running through your chest. Maybe you felt it last night when you Saturday alone in a quiet room and thought, something is different about me. Maybe you've been carrying this feeling for years, this odd, unshakable, almost irrational sense that you were not made for ordinary, that the ceiling everyone else accepts was never actually your ceiling, that while others were reading the map, you were already the territory. This video is not for everyone. It was never meant to be. This video is for the one who has been overlooked, underestimated, dismissed, doubted, and who, despite all of that, somehow never fully stopped believing. Because what is coming for you is not small, and the question is not whether you are the chosen one. The question is whether you are finally ready to stop pretending that you are not. Part O Northeast, the weight you were born carrying. Let's start at the beginning, not your beginning, but the beginning of this pattern that has followed you your entire life. You were never quite like the others around you, not in an arrogant way, not in a way you could easily explain, but in a way that created a distance you didn't ask for. You noticed things others didn't notice. You felt things others seemed immune to. You asked questions that made people uncomfortable. You looked at a situation and saw not just what it was, but what it could become, what it was hiding, what it was secretly asking for. And instead of being celebrated for this, you were often penalized. You were called too sensitive, too intense, too much, too different. Teachers told you to sit down. Peers told you to calm down. Family members told you to be realistic. And so you did what any reasonable person does when their environment refuses to accommodate their size. You started making yourself smaller. You tucked away the visions. You swallowed the fire. You learned to perform normal, because performing normal kept the peace and kept people comfortable. But here is what they never told you. The weight you were born carrying was not a punishment. It was preparation. Every oversized feeling you had, every vision that seemed too grand, every instinct that refused to be silenced, these were not symptoms of a problem. They were signals of a purpose. They were the universe laying the groundwork for something it needed built. And it chose you to build it, not because you were the most comfortable candidate, not because you were the most polished, the most connected, the most traditionally qualified, but because something in your particular architecture, the way your mind moves, the way your spirit refuses to settle, the way you burn was precisely what the mission required. Part to the silence they mistook for absence. Here is one of the great ironies of the chosen one's journey. The very period that looks most like failure is often the period of most intense preparation. The years of silence, the years where nothing seemed to be happening, where you looked at your life and felt behind, where you watched people less capable than you collect accolades and advancement while you stood still. The silence was not abandonment. The silence was construction. Think about a cathedral. For years, sometimes decades before a cathedral is open to the public, all you see from the outside is scaffolding, tarps, barriers, and construction signs. If you don't understand what's being built, it looks like chaos. It looks like nothing of beauty could possibly emerge. But behind those barriers, craftsmen are working at the level of obsessive precision. Every arch is calculated. Every stone is placed with intention. Every detail is being considered not just for how it looks today, but for how it will stand 500 years from now. That was your silence. That was your nothing is happening, period. God, the universe, your higher self, whatever name you give to the intelligence that coordinates these things, was not absent. It was building. It was shaping. It was testing the load-bearing walls of your character to make sure that when the weight of your destiny arrived, you wouldn't collapse under it. Because the chosen one is not just chosen for the glory. The chosen one is chosen for the entire journey, including the parts that happen in private, in the dark, in the silence, when no one is watching and no one is clapping and the only witness is you and whatever you believe in. And in that silence, the real choosing happens. Not once, but daily. Every morning you chose to keep going when quitting made more rational sense. That was a choosing. Every night you chose faith over evidence, vision over circumstance, possibility over probability. That was a choosing. The title does not come down from the sky fully formed. It is forged, day by day, in the furnace of private commitment. Part 3. The Northeast SUDIDNTRAGNIZU. Let's talk about the people who said, "Who TF is this?" Not the ones who said it in awe, but the ones who said it in dismissal. The ones who looked at you in the early stages and saw nothing remarkable. The managers who passed you over, the collaborators who chose someone else, the rooms that went quiet not with reverence, but with confusion or condescension when you entered, the people who, and this is the one that cuts the deepest, knew you personally and still didn't see it, the ones who grew up with you, Saturday beside you, shared meals with you, and somehow managed to remain entirely unimpressed. These people will become one of the most important chapters in your story, not because they were right, they were not right, but because their dismissal did something to you that no amount of early encouragement could have done. It tested the authenticity of your belief. When someone who loves you doesn't see your potential, the easiest thing in the world is to collapse into their vision of you, to decide that maybe they know something you don't, to surrender to the smallness they've assigned you. And here is the brutal, clarifying truth. Most people do exactly that. Most people let the opinions of those closest to them become the ceiling of their ambition. They stop reaching for the version of themselves that lives just beyond the evidence, and they settle into the version that the people around them can already measure and confirm. But the chosen one, the real one, not the fantasy, does something different. The chosen one feels the sting. Does not pretend it doesn't hurt, does not perform immunity to pain, but then, and this is the defining movement, refuses to let the sting become a sentence, refuses to let someone else's blindness become their reality. There is a particular kind of loneliness in being unseen by people who are supposed to see you, but there is also a particular kind of power that grows in that loneliness, because when you can no longer borrow belief from the people around you, you are forced to generate your own, and self-generated belief, the kind that doesn't depend on external validation, that doesn't require an audience, that burns cleanly even when no one is watching, that is the most potent fuel in the universe. Part for the spiritual architect courtyard of being chosen. Now let's go deeper, because this is not just a motivational pep talk. This is a spiritual conversation, and it deserves spiritual honesty. Being chosen is not a comfortable thing. In every tradition, in every mythology, in every sacred text, the chosen ones are not the ones lounging in luxury, untouched by struggle. They are the ones walking through the wilderness. They are the ones being tested in ways that seem specifically designed to break exactly the thing they most need to carry their mission. Moses didn't ask to lead a nation. He was a fugitive, a shepherd, a man with a speech impediment standing in front of a burning bush, saying, "Are you sure you have the right person?" Joseph didn't ask to be sold into slavery by his own brothers before rising to power in Egypt. He spent years in prison for crimes he didn't commit. The path to his purpose ran directly through the worst possible circumstances. David didn't ask for Goliath. He was a kid with a slingshot, ridiculed by his own family, dismissed by the king's army. The giant was not an obstacle to the destiny. The giant was the destiny, the moment specifically designed to reveal what David was made of, to announce to the world in the most undeniable way possible that something different was operating through this person. Do you see the pattern? The chosen one is always placed in a situation that looks, from the outside, like the wrong situation, too small, too upmatched, too unlikely, too early or too late, surrounded by people who don't believe, equipped with resources that seem insufficient, facing opposition that seems insurmountable. This is not a design flaw. This is the design, because the mission requires not just someone with a talent. There are many talented people. The mission requires someone who has been forged, someone whose belief has been pressure tested, someone who has met their own shadow, wrestled with it in the dark, and emerged not unscathed, but unbroken, someone who has been emptied enough times that there is now genuine room for something larger to move through them. The spiritual architecture of being chosen is not comfort and clarity. It is paradox and tension. It is being called to something before you feel ready. It is being asked to carry something heavier than you think you can carry, and discovering, in the act of carrying it, that you were built for exactly this weight. Part 5. When the shift happens, and then it happens, not all at once, rarely all at once, but in moments, flashes, ruptures in the ordinary where something extraordinary leaks through. The first time you speak and the room goes completely still, not because you planned anything special, but because something moved through your words that was larger than your vocabulary. The first time you create something and people who don't know you, who have no reason to be kind, look at it and feel changed. The first time you walk into a room and the energy shifts in a way you can't explain and neither can anyone else. The first time someone who once dismissed you watches you from across the room with an expression that has changed entirely. These moments are not accidents. They are confirmations. They are the universe keeping its side of the agreement, because there is an agreement, spoken in the language of consistent action, of private commitment, of choosing your purpose over your comfort again and again and again until the choosing becomes instinct and the instinct becomes nature and the nature becomes destiny made manifest. People will say things like, "He came out of nowhere. She appeared overnight. I don't know where they came from, but suddenly they were everywhere." And you will smile privately, gently, because you know exactly where you came from. You came from the years of silence. You came from the rooms where no one was watching. You came from the 4 a.m. decisions and the lonely discipline and the faith that refused to die even when every rational argument said it should. You came from the long walk through the wilderness. You didn't appear out of nowhere. You emerged from everywhere. You emerged from every moment they thought you were wasting, every period they thought you were lost, every silence they mistook for surrender. When the shift happens, it does not surprise you at the level of the soul. At the level of the soul, you always knew. The only thing that has changed is that now the outside world can finally see what was always already there. Part 6: The Northeast Miles of your emergence. But let's be honest about what stands between where you are and where you are going. Not the external obstacles, those are almost manageable. Though the real enemies of emergence are internal, subtle, and wear the disguise of reason. The first enemy is comparison. Comparison is the instrument the ego uses to keep you stuck. It will show you someone who started at the same time as you and has gone further. It will show you someone younger, someone with fewer apparent advantages. Someone who seems to be operating on an easier setting, and it will whisper, "See, if you were truly chosen, you'd be there by now." This is a lie with a statistical face. Your path is not their path. Your timing is not their timing. The chosen one's journey is not a race with a shared finish line. It is a mission with a unique shape that only becomes visible as you walk it. Comparing your chapter 4 to someone else's chapter 15 is not humility. It is self-sabotage dressed as realism. The second enemy is the need for permission. Somewhere along the way, most people develop the belief that they need someone else's blessing before they can fully step into who they are. A mentor who confirms their talent, a platform that validates their voice, an institution that certifies their worthiness. And so they wait. They wait for permission that, in many cases, will never come because the people in position to grant it are often unconsciously invested in maintaining the current hierarchy. The chosen one does not wait for permission. The chosen one creates, acts, moves, publishes, shows up, speaks, builds, not recklessly but relentlessly, understanding that permission is not the precondition for the work. The work is the condition for everything that follows. The third enemy, and perhaps the most dangerous, is the belief that you are protecting others by staying small. This is the most spiritual sounding form of self-betrayal. It says, I don't want to make people feel bad. I don't want to outshine the people I love. If I rise too high, I'll lose the people who mattered to me. And so you dim, deliberately, righteously. You tell yourself it's selfless, when really it's fear in a saint's clothing. Here is the truth. Your smallness helps no one, not the people you love, not the world that needs what you carry. The most generous thing you can do for everyone around you is to become fully, unapologetically, completely yourself. Part 7. The Discipline Northeast of the Anointed. Let's talk about something that is rarely glamorized in the Chosen One narrative, but is actually the entire substance of it. Disciplined, not the dramatic, cinematic discipline of training montages and sweat-soaked climaxes. The quiet, unglamorous, daily discipline that no one sees and no one celebrates, and that makes absolutely all the difference. There is a moment every single day where two versions of you stand at a fork. One version knows what needs to be done. It can see the path clearly. It is aligned with the purpose, connected to the vision, aware of what the mission requires. The other version is tired, is comfortable, has excellent reasons for not doing the work today, will do it tomorrow, has earned a break, is waiting for inspiration, is waiting to feel ready. The chosen one is not the one who never experiences the second version. The chosen one is the one who, more days than not, chooses the first. This is not a superhuman gift. It is a practice that begins awkwardly and inconsistently and slowly, over time, solidifies into identity. The person who meditates for 5 minutes a day for 10 years is not the same person they were when they started. Not just because of accumulated skill, but because of accumulated identity. Every day they chose the practice over the excuse. They became slightly more the person who chooses the practice over the excuse. Until one day, and this is the day, that looks like a dramatic transformation to outside observers. They simply are that person. The transformation that the world sees in one moment was actually happening continuously over thousands of invisible moments. This is the discipline of the anointed, not fireworks, not superhuman willpower, just the quiet, daily, sacred practice of showing up for the thing you were made to do, especially on the days when every part of your small self says not today, because the calling does not respect your moods. The mission does not pause for your convenience, and the gap between who you are and who you are meant to be closes only in the daily renegotiation with yourself, always in favor of the higher version. Part 8. The people who will me. When you step into your power fully, and you will the landscape of people around, you will shift in ways that are both beautiful and disorienting. Some people who have been in your life for years will quietly exit, not dramatically, not always with confrontation. They will simply find your presence uncomfortable in a way they cannot articulate. They will become vague, unavailable, distant, and if you are not prepared for this, it will feel like betrayal. It is not betrayal. It is alignment. Every environment has a resonant frequency. When you raise your frequency through genuine growth and commitment to purpose, some people simply cannot sustain the resonance match. They are not bad people. They are not your enemies. They are humans who are exactly where they are. And where they are is no longer where you are going. Release them with love. Do not shrink back to the frequency that kept you together. The love is real. The connection was real. And the disconnection is also real and also necessary. But here is the gift. For every person who exits, others will arrive. People who have been looking for exactly what you carry. People who recognize you in the way that feels like remembering rather than meeting, like you have been connected at a level that predates the handshake. Collaborators, companions, co-conspirators in the work of building something that matters. These people do not arrive before you step into your power. They cannot, because they are drawn not by who you were pretending to be, but by the signal your authenticity broadcasts. The moment you stop performing and start being truly, fully, without apology, being, the right people can finally locate you. And when they arrive, you will understand at a cellular level why the others had to leave. Because these new people, these aligned souls, will hold you accountable, challenge you to grow, see you clearly, celebrate you genuinely, and refuse to let you shrink back into the smaller version of yourself. They will be mirrors of your highest self, and in their presence, becoming who you were meant to be will feel not like a mountain to climb but like a homecoming. Part 9 Northeast. The moment the world turns. There will come a specific moment. You may not recognize it as it's happening, but you will feel it when the world turns, when the tide shifts, when the people who once overlooked you begin to seek you out, when the doors that were closed begin to open, not because you forced them, but because the energy on the other side has shifted. When the question changes from "Who TF is this?" said in dismissal, to "Who TF is this?" said in awe, this is not the end of the journey. Let's be clear about that. It is a threshold, and thresholds are always both a completion and a beginning. The achievement of recognition does not mean the work is done. In many ways, the real work begins here, because now you must learn to carry your influence with integrity, to let the attention make you more accountable rather than less, to use the platform as a vehicle for the mission rather than a substitution for it, because this is where many chosen ones stumble. Not in the wilderness, not in the silence, in the arrival, in the moment the world finally sees them and offers them the seductive comfort of arrival, the applause, the accolades, the validation, the rest, and what separates the truly great ones from the flash in the pan phenomena is the ability to receive the recognition without being consumed by it, to hold it lightly, to remember that the title was never the point, the mission was the point. The recognition is simply the universe creating the conditions for the mission to operate at greater scale. When the world turns toward you, it is not asking you to perform. It is asking you to lead, and to lead at the level you are being called to. You must be rooted in something deeper than applause, rooted in purpose, in principle, in the private code you built in the silence when no one was watching. That code is your anchor. That code is what makes the arrival sustainable, rather than spectacular but brief. Part 10. A letter to your past self. If you could send a message back to the version of you that was in the deepest valley, in the longest silence, in the most convincing darkness, what would you say? I know what the chosen one would say. You are not broken. You are between breaths. The thing they called your flaw is actually the precise instrument the mission requires. The years you think you wasted were the years you were being made. The people who didn't choose you were not the gatekeepers of your destiny. They were simply not positioned to participate in it. The loneliness you felt was not rejection by life. It was the necessary solitude of becoming. The fire that keeps burning in you despite everything. That fire is not irrational. It is prophetic. It knows something about your future that your present circumstances cannot yet confirm. Trust it, protect it, feed it, wake up every day and choose it again, because the version of you that exists on the other side of all this doubt and darkness and silence is not an exaggeration. It is not a fantasy. It is a destination real, specific, already written, and you are walking toward it with every choice you make to keep going when every comfortable instinct says stop. Don't stop. What is coming for you is real, and it is extraordinary, and it has always already been yours. Part 11. The signs you were Al Washington Y.S. chosen. Let me give you something concrete, because spiritual truth needs to be felt in the body, not just understood in the mind. Here are the signs that were always there, pointing at you, marking you, even when you couldn't read them. The fact that you never fully fit, not because you were broken, but because you were built for a category that didn't yet exist in your environment. The persistent feeling of being called towards something you cannot yet fully name, that pull that never fully left, no matter how much life tried to distract you from it. The resilience that surprised even you, the number of times you should have been finished, should have quit, should have surrendered, and somehow didn't. The way certain ideas arrive in you fully formed, as if being downloaded rather than invented. The visions, the solutions, the language that feels larger than you when it moves through you. The specific nature of your wound, because the chosen one's wound is rarely random. It is almost always precisely calibrated to the mission. The thing that hurt you most is connected, usually directly, to the thing you are here to heal, to teach, to transform in the world. The people who have, at key moments, seen something in you that you didn't yet see in yourself. The mentor who showed up unexpectedly. The stranger who said something that unlocked something in you. The book that found you at exactly the right moment. These were not coincidences. They were confirmations, woven into the fabric of a story that was always larger than any single chapter. And this restlessness, this inability to settle for less than the full expression of what you are, this refusal to accept a life that fits neatly within other people's expectations. This is perhaps the most reliable sign of all. Ordinary lives do not require this level of internal warfare. You fight so hard against your own smallness because you contain something that simply cannot be contained. And every time you have tried to contain it, The container has broken. This is not a problem to be solved. This is a message to be received. Part 12. What it means to claim your crown. Claiming your crown is not a single dramatic moment. It is a posture, a way of moving through the world, a daily decision to carry yourself as the person you are becoming, not just the person you have been. It means speaking when your voice shakes, because the words need to be said and you are the one who was given them. It means creating even when the work is imperfect, because imperfect and real outperforms perfect and imaginary every single time. It means holding your vision with enough conviction that it can withstand the doubt of others, not arrogantly, not defensively, but with the calm certainty of someone who has sat a day alone with the truth long enough to know what it is. It means serving. This is important, and it is the part that most people skip in the chosen one narrative. The crown is not a trophy. It is a weight, specifically the weight of responsibility to the people your work is meant to serve. The king who wears the crown for the privilege is a tyrant. The one who wears it for the people is a leader. The chosen one does not arrive to be served. The chosen one arrives to serve at a level of quality, at a scale, at a depth that was not possible before. And so claiming the crown means claiming the responsibility, saying yes to the work that comes with it, staying humble enough to keep learning while confident enough to keep leading, being moved by the mission more than the applause, measuring success not by how many people know your name, but by how many people's lives were changed by the thing you were brave enough to build. This is what it means to be chosen. This is what the title actually asks of you. And there is nothing in you, not one cell, not one fiber, not one heartbeat that was not made for exactly this. Part 13. The final word. You already know. At the level that matters most, below the noise of doubt, below the static of other people's opinions, below the accumulated weight of disappointment and delay, you already know. You have always already known. That's why this video reached you. That's why something in you resonated before I finished the first paragraph. That's why you're still here. 20-some thousand words later, feeling something in your chest that is not entirely explainable. You know. And now the question, the only question that has ever mattered, is what you do with the knowing. Because knowing without action is just beautiful pain. The purpose of the knowing is to be translated into the doing, into the creating, into the showing up, into the choosing. Again, the highest version of yourself, even on the days when the distance between who you are and who you are becoming feels unbridgeable. It is not unbridgeable. You are the bridge. Your choices, your discipline, your faith, your willingness to carry what most people put down. You are the bridge between what is and what is meant to be. So carry it with grace and with fire, with humility and with power, with gentleness toward yourself and with absolute refusal to settle. The world has been waiting longer than you know for exactly what you carry. Not a version of it, not a diluted, apologetic, shrunk-down version designed to make other people comfortable. The full version, the true version, the version that was put in you before you had a name, before you had a resume, before you had a strategy or a brand or a plan. The version that burns in you at 3 a.m. The version that makes you cry when you're closest to it and terrified when you think you might miss it. That version, that one, they will say, "Who TF is this?" And you will know exactly who. You always have. Now let them see it. The time is now. The person is you. The mission has always been waiting. Go.